It's here. The Twins' big September series against the Guardians. What does it mean? Probably more for the AL Wildcard race than the AL Central race. We'll find out why after getting Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Locked On Podcast Network, which brings you your team every day. I'm co-host Dave Brown, a professional ball writer since 1998, previous century, millennium, a BBWA member since 2012, and a Baseball Hall of Fame voter since this year. Please follow me at Answer Dave Brown. Boy, I'm just messing up all over the place on Twitter, if you like. Across from me in cyberspace is Brandon Warren, a Twins watcher for 30 years, who not long ago covered the team on a daily basis professionally. He asks that you spam him rudely on Twitter at Brandon_Warren with an E at the end. This episode will review the Twins salvaging their series against the Reds over the weekend, and we'll preview their 4-game series at Progressive Field that begins the final 2-week stretch of the regular season. We'll check the Twins' likelihood of actually overtaking the Guardians in the AL Central. This is me shaking my head if you're not watching on YouTube. Along with the chances of someone like Detroit or Seattle overtaking the Twins for the final spot in the AL playoff field. This is me also shaking my head, but less so. Before we talk about all that, hi, Brandon.
Hey.
Can you tell us who's bringing us this episode?
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB. That's all lowercase, and you'll win $50 instantly when you play $5. By the way, you can catch every pitch of the Twins' hometown broadcast with Chris Atterbury and friends on Sirius XM. Just download the SXM app and search Twins. It's Pablo Day in Cleveland, and it's going to be against Guardians lefty Matthew Boyd, who has been terrific in 6 starts since coming off the injured list. So this should be a fun one, should be a spirited one. 5:40 p.m. Central at Don't Call It the Jake Progressive Field in the Cleve.
Brandon, what do you think of my background?
I think it's milk-tastic.
If you can't see, because you're listening only, it's a picture of the Metrodome Giant Milk. I can't get it to work properly because you can only see like a few. How do I do? Not very much of it, but it's one of my favorite. Call it landmarks in Major League history. So I'm just hoping to like gin up some positive vibes for this series after the Twins salvaged the finale of their 3-game set against the Reds. Salvaged against the Reds. That doesn't sound great. With a 9-2 victory Sunday, improving the Twins did to 6-8 in September. Big day at the plate for Brooks Lee, who drove in 5 runs, so that's good. And Carlos Santana hit his 22nd homer. And all of it overcame an early RBI triple by Spencer Steer, which no doubt made people uncomfortable. One day after returning, Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton rested. It was a bummer. It was kind of like a dry hump, as we say, where you get warmed up in the bullpen and then don't go in. Yep. So they were back. They were gone, and they were back for a day, and then some people overreacted on Twitter. It happens. But as Rocco said, basically, they're not 100% healthy, and they had no rehab leading up to their return. So they're going to take it easy. Now, hopefully they'll get in 4, 3, 2.5 games against the Guardians. We'll see. But this was a highly anticipated series that's coming up against Cleveland. But really, if you're not going to like this, Twins fans. But the Twins are really like 7 games out. So even if they sweep, they'd be like 3 games back. Now, if the Twins swept all the games in the Cleveland series, which I can't see, I wouldn't predict that if they were playing their best ball and had been for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But if they did, they'd be like 3 games out. But if they did sweep, it would create some chaos. It would sow some doubt in the Guardians. It would be good if they swept. No doubt about it. Just not expecting it.
Well, and who knows what the Royals would do in the meantime besides to add to
Yes.
that chaos. And you can look back on that Royals series and getting swept at the K for the reason why this series is a lot less consequential than we may have expected it to be 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago. And so as much as it would be good for the Twins to show up and show out in Cleveland, facing Boyd, Williams, Bybee, and Cantillo, that's about the best of what they have to offer over there. And you're countering with Pablo, Zebby, Ober, and SWR. No Festa, but 60% of your rotation is rookies right now. And the Twins are kind of clinging for dear life, which is not a good place to be, even if you are 80-ish% odds to make the playoffs, which I know we'll touch on a bit later.
Yeah. Well, we can touch on. There's no order to this. I had, we have it like an order set up, but you mentioned Festa. He pitched in the finale against the Reds, and it was another kind of a short start. It was, he and SWR and Zebby have kind of been getting diminishing returns every time they go out there, and that's not all that surprising, I guess, given that they're rookies. They still show some excellent potential for the future, but I guess we're kind of worried right now about how the Twins are going to handle the rest of this season. So it's a matter of trying to keep Correa and Buxton healthy and doing your best with the rest of it. So,
well, the youngsters are on kind of the Chris Archer path, twice through the order, and that's about it. And the funny thing is, they've been way more amenable to letting relievers get more than 3 outs, and no more of a case than on Sunday where Enriquez got 4, Sands got 6, and Alcala got 6. And that kind of harkens back to, when you and I talked early in the season, and I said, honestly, I'd rather see guys go 2 innings. You're still only facing a lineup one time more often than not. I mean, if you give up 3 base runners, you might get into it a second time. But then again, you probably didn't pitch well enough to have that second inning. And then, there's the whole idea of like, if you go 5 with your starter and then 4 relievers for an inning apiece, the odds that one of those relievers is not quite there, like as good as they need to be that day, that's certainly a thing that can happen. Whereas in 2 inning stints, you have a better chance of seeing what a guy has on a given day. And 2, then you have fewer guys down on a day-to-day basis. You won't have likely Cole Sands or Jorge Alcala available today, but you do have, your big guns, your afters. And so I've always kind of thought about that as, well, what if you did 2 inning guys instead of 1 inning guys? Would that drastically alter the course of a bullpen over the course of a season? And I don't know if it'd be for better, for worse, for otherwise, because, we've seen the Guardians, they've got so many guys over 60. I'm sure since I last checked, they're probably now closer to 70 appearances. I don't know. I mean, I just think there's a lot of ways you could make a bullpen stretch, and I'm curious how each way would work and be different than any other.
Can you make a bullpen stretch? Can you make a shoe smell? That's a Rodney joke from Caddyshack, by the way, but it's neither here nor there. A nice development on this note is how Cole Sands has kind of become like a mid-game stopper, and a guy that you can trust to put out there. Sometimes you don't know how many or how long home runs Alcala is going to give up, but Sands has been very dependable in the middle of games, and that's good. You figure you won't need him in the opener of this series because Pablo's going, knock on wood.
Yep.
So I think we're at the point of the season where, desperate. I don't know if desperate is the word, but urgent. And I think you're going to be able to see, your plan of having, if they need it, guys go 2 innings at a time. It's not a case where we can count on. I think what Rocco and Mackey did a lot during the season is kind of pre-rest guys, definitely plan ahead where, you don't want to use a guy to make him tired so that you can't use him sooner rather than later. I think at this point, they're just going to have to rest guys once they're tired. We're going to have to get to that point where you can't worry about, 2 or 3 games in the future. You got to take the bull by the horns while you can. So I think, if guys are tired, then don't pitch him. But other than that, the planning on all that kind of has to be condensed here in the last 13 games.
And I think Sands, to kind of go back to him for a second, has taken on the role that I think was something I would have envisioned for Louis Varland if all things were going well for him the way we would have hoped. And obviously going out this weekend and throwing like he did, the stuff did what I would have expected it to, but the results were obviously, again, all too familiar. But hey, Cole Sands, so his ERA on May 27th, he gave up 3 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning in a win over Kansas City, got his ERA up to 5.48. Since then, he's pitched in 37 games, 44 and 2/3 innings. He has a 1.61 ERA, 48-6 strikeouts to walks, so more than a strikeout per inning, and about a walk every 7 innings. So again, terrific right there. And get this, a slash line against of 206, 234, 285. So basically no extra base hits, not walking anybody. He has been just nails for this bullpen and a godsend too, where I think we, when we talked about befores and afters back then, he was a before that I could have seen eventually as an after. And now he's pretty comfortably like either an after if guys are down, or a guy who can take you from before to after if you're down, like let's say 5-3, but you want to get the bats going in the 5th inning. You can have him kind of stem the tide and get anywhere from 4 to 6, 7, 8 outs and try to keep you in a game, especially too, when sometimes when you're down 4-2, you're okay to manage with, hey, we're behind and it's unlikely we'll come back. But sometimes you got to manage like, okay, well, we really could use this game and we got to keep it as close as we can. So I think a guy like that is invaluable.
Definitely. And at this point, he's pretty much guarantees 3rd on the team in victories, which is funny for a reliever. But I guess not all that unusual. Didn't Jax have a bunch of wins last year? I don't know.
Yeah, but he came into this year with 0 career wins. He has 8 this year. He reminds me of Tony Fiore. Look it up, kids.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
That's
Fiore, but I'm thinking of Fiore.
So. Fiore.
All right, let's take our 12 minutes in. We're running behind. We got to catch up. So we're going to do some commercial breaks. And when we come back, we'll talk more about the Twins, if you can believe it.
Well, it is NFL full. We're full on NFL season. We're 2 games in. Obviously, as a Vikings fan, I'm a little bit more amped about it than Dave here as a Bears fan is. But got to watch them on prime time last night, which was pretty cool. It's always fun to see your team play nationally. But if you're trying, I'm being diverted in another direction. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, though. And let me get to why we're talking about NFL. America's #1 sportsbook wants you to know that we have something different for you. From now through the end of this week, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. That's right. Any bet. You can even bet for the Carolina Panthers to win, and you still get 3 weeks free. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch regular season Sunday afternoon games that are out of market. All you have to do is have the Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Again, that's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Did I open up some wounds there with that one, Dave?
Oh, not at all. The wounds are already open. So
is Caleb Williams?
The Bears don't have an offensive line. Did you know that? Do you know how hard it is to score points without an offensive line?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Joe Burrow thing where he's throwing to guys but doesn't have anybody to block for him because they took was it Jamar Chase instead of Penei Sewell, the guy who's on the Lions right now. And yeah, it's hard because the guys that play the glamour positions are more fun to draft, but if you can't block for the quarterback, you got bigger problems. So we honestly probably have no idea how good Caleb Williams is because he's running for his life.
Right. So back to the baseball at hand, the Guardians and the Twins, 4-game series. The Twins are really, I think, like I mentioned, they're more like 7 games out because they're 6th in the loss column, but a tie at the regular season end doesn't do them any good because the Twins can't win the regular season series against the Guardians. They think they finish 6-7 if they sweep these games. So they can't flip that in a 4-game sweep. But, we talk about the overuse and abuse of Cleveland's bullpen. It has to come into play at some point. It probably won't for the Twins. It'd probably be something like in a playoff series that they're not in, the Guardians. That's when it'll catch up to them.
Do you want to hear something dumb?
Oh, always.
Cleveland has the lowest bullpen ERA in all of baseball this month. Like
It's
1.34.
Right. Well,
it's insane.
Hey, there's still 2 weeks left, so watch out, Mr. New manager.
I hate waiting for data points that never come to fruition. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Is that going on your tombstone?
Probably. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I watch a Twins team that I think does analytically sound decisions, and they still blow up on them. And then I have to see the massive throngs of people who are ticked that they pinch hit Manuel Margot 35 times and he went 0 for 35, or I mean, whatever. It's probably like 0 for 27. And even though it was the right move in that moment, it just never works out. And I don't know. I'm tired, Dave. I'm just tired.
So, I mean, like we said, even if the Twins were to somehow sweep this series, and I think the best they should hope for is a split.
It'd be
anything,
wholly
just don't get swept.
Yeah. A split would be wholly unsatisfying, but exactly what I'm expecting.
And I think maybe what they could even use at this point, because all they have to do is not be horrendous in the last 2 weeks of the season, and they'll be in the playoffs. And that's better than a lot of teams can say. Mm-hmm. And, we'll see if they're a better version of themselves once the playoffs start. But, one thing that I think people can get used to, not repeating as AL Central champs, 1, but 2, this Cleveland series will kind of be a preview of the wild card in a way, because all the wild card games will be on the road in the first round. So
where the Twins
I believe that's how it works, isn't it? I'm not wrong there.
Yes, and the Twins have fared reasonably well on the road this season. They're 37-37. And so it's not as though this is the 1987 Twins. Have you ever seen the record for the 1987 Twins on the road?
I just know that it was much more likely that they'd win at home. Weren't they like 19 games over 500 at home?
They were like 27-52 on the road that year.
Right.
And then just crazy good at home. They actually, I believe, had a negative run differential for the whole season and finished like 85-77. I mean, there's plenty of evidence that you don't have to be that good in the regular season to win the World Series. The 87 Twins, what was it? The 2006 Cardinals. Last year, the Diamondbacks got to the World Series and were not that far over 500. It was both wild card teams that played in the World Series last year. Like, again, I understand the doom and the gloom in the moment, but I also think get to the tournament and let something happen. You've got 2 pitchers at the top of your rotation that a lot of teams would like to have in Bailey Ober and Pablo Lopez, not necessarily in that order, and a bullpen where if you can focus in on the right guys and manage it on a less day-to-day basis, you might be in a better place than it feels like playing 162, where you have to run guys out there, who are not equipped for pitching in the postseason. I'm not saying the Twins are going to go gangbusters in October, but what we're seeing now and what we see in October may be completely different movies.
And I just still the quality of the opponents, the potential playoff opponents, hasn't changed. They're still the same flawed, okay, but not great teams that are certainly beatable in a short series. So that hasn't changed. And Fangraphs, or not Fangraphs, I didn't look at that, but Baseball Prospect Bus has the Twins at 80.2% still probable to make the playoffs. 79.8% of that is a wild card. So all they have to do is just wait out the they got to worry maybe about the Mariners doing something silly, because the Mariners have a history of doing something silly at the end of the regular season, like winning all the games. If the Mariners were to go, I don't know exactly how many they got left, but if they went like 10-2, 11-1, which teams can do, then maybe you got an issue. Then that could be how the season. If the Twins, even with all their problems, if they did manage to miss the playoffs, that would be. I don't know what would happen. Like, would something happen?
Yeah, I don't know.
Would somebody not have a job next year if that happened?
Fanglyph says 84.4 for percentage, but 3.5% to win the World Series, which is higher than the Royals and the Mariners, but less than the Astros.
I don't know that it should be, because if the Mariners got in the playoffs with their pitching, and the Royals with their 2 starting pitching at the beginning,
that
could.
I don't know what the point. Like it's all data that is maybe more cold and sanitized from the actual like human element of what it looks like if you actually so I mean I know what the data says, but I also know what watching the games and how things can go ebb and flow work. But then again too, like the one thing that blows my mind is that I think it was 2014, but the Tigers had David Price, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, and lost every single game. They were swept out of the playoffs that year.
Right.
So I mean, it's there's no guarantees in October, and there's no guarantees in baseball, and even fewer in October is probably how I should have put that.
Well, I am still, I'm trying to play up the vibes here with the Metrodome and the Metrodome Milk, even though the Twins, they won't have. At least in the first round, Lord willing, any home games. So,
by the way, do you know what brand of milk that is behind you?
I think it's Land O'Lakes.
It's not Kemp's, which was Joe Mauer's. It was Land O'Lakes, which, if they had gotten the rights to Target Field, not that they were even in that conversation, but LOL Field would be pretty awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, especially like when there's rain. And you're like, you had a dome, and you turned it and you changed it in for this game, LOL Field.
Or when they lost 100 games and the total system failure in 2016, which led to Royce Lewis getting drafted. Or even 2011, the second year when they almost lost 100. That would have been perfect for LOL Field.
I'm glad you're here for all the, these snap memories of how many games they lost in 2012. I'm pretty impressed. I think I used to be like that, but I'm not like that anymore.
Only for the Twins. I don't even know who won the World Series last year, if I'm honest with you.
It's a good thing that it's a Twins podcast, because that helps.
You know what my blind spot is for baseball? Player numbers. If you ask me what Griffin Jacks wears, I have no idea. But if you ask me, like, it's Joe Mauer, Kirby Puckett, Kent Hrbek, Torrey Hunter, Justin Morneau was 27, and I think then he was 33 for a while. There's a few that I remember, but if you ask me what Cole Sands' number is right now, no idea. I have no idea.
I think I'm maybe the inverse or the reflect of that. Probably not the right phrase, because lots of people were wearing 21 yesterday on Sunday for Roberto Clemente to honor him. And I'm like, wow, who's these 21? And they didn't have the names on the back, like kind of a la Jackie Robinson. And I'm like, I don't know who this is. It's Matt Wallner or something.
The Twins have a guy who would do the official scoring or the assistant to that. And that was his least favorite day every year was the 47s, or not 47s, 42s. It'd be 42 running, 42 in to play shortstop. And he just, they would give him the day off because it was so bothersome to him.
Second base, Bugs Bunny. Third base, Bugs Bunny.
Gas House Gorillas, 97. Bugs Bunny, 96, or something like that. Yeah, I love that cartoon.
Well, while we try and remember whose number is everyone, and that's not phrased properly, let's take our second break and do some more advertising.
Well, we love Prize Picks at this time of year. All the sports are sportsing, and we got some more sports coming back. Basketball's on its way. WNBA is in full swing, and the Prize Picks community wants you to know that they are the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player set projections and watch the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Picks every week in September. Jokes aside, that's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. It's like you're playing the Panthers every single week. Do not miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. But you can win up to 100 times your money with as few as 4 correct picks. And it's in most states, California, Texas, Georgia. I know it's in Minnesota. You can play alongside some celebrity pickers like Drewski, Joe Budden, MMA champion Sean O'Malley. Sorry, I'm thinking of Sugar Shane Robinson, the former Twins outfielder. But you can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app and view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB, and you'll get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. Just use that code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks, and it's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game.
I don't want everybody to be, to turn depressed about this series, but I was looking at the pitching matchup, and it seems like it would be good because on the one side you've got Pablo, and Pablo Lopez has a 2.32 ERA with 96 strikeouts in his over 89 and a third over his past 14 starts since June 23. So that's what he's doing. Great stuff. The Twins are 10-4 in those starts, but the guy they're facing, I don't know if it's not locked on Matt. I was going to call him Matt Lloyd, but that's not his name. Matt Boyd.
Matt Lloyd is your backup tight end on your high school football team, probably.
Now, Matt Lloyd was like the PR assistant on the Bulls, who now is in the front office of. He was with the Magic. Oh, he's with the. He might be with the Timberwolves.
Look up,
see if Matt Lloyd. There's a guy in that. Anyway, super dude.
But so
Matt Lloyd isn't pitching today, but Matt Boyd is, and he has been. I'm looking for weaknesses and reasons to be optimistic about this game, and
there aren't any.
He's been really good. It doesn't make any sense that he's been good, but it's people can't hit his 92-mile-an-hour fastball. Seriously, they can't.
Very, very Bailey Ober-esque. I actually had the notes for the Bally Networks this series, and so Matthew Boyd, since he came back in August, 6 starts, he has the third lowest ERA in the AL among starters with at least 6 starts. If you drop that to 5 starts, Pablo Lopez has the lowest ERA in that time frame at 0.79. So this is very much a 2-1, 3-2 final, possibly. And I have a bad feeling that that's Emmanuel Clase throwing 102-mile-an-hour cutters to close it out if that's the case. But hopefully the Twins offense, the righty, the demon offense, as some of the people on Twitter like to call it, hopefully they can come out and get some hits against him, because it's 6 starts, and I know that that's a reasonably decent sample size. But again, this guy did not pitch this year until August, and so he's. I still think there's bumps in the road for him ahead. No better time than the present for him to hit those.
I would like to take this opportunity to criticize the Twins front office for letting Cleveland bring this guy in. I mean, that might be the difference between Cleveland winning the division and the Twins winning the division. That said, coming into this season, Matthew Boyd had a 4.94 ERA in 900 about innings coming into 2024. He's very, he had a few seasons with the Tigers, a couple seasons where, there's a pretty good 4.5 starter. This has been, he's been terrific. I'm looking for indications of regression, and I think the only one that I can see is that he throws a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. Now, that said, I watched a game yesterday where Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies and David Peterson of the Mets, very, I would say lefties with kind of pedestrian talent.
I had those notes too. I wrote those.
Knew what they were doing. I mean, knew where to put the ball. Were putting it in the right spot at the right time, and intelligent pitching. I see hope for that with guys in the Twins rotation, the young guys, but that's basically what Boyd's doing. Boyd is doing what Peterson and Sanchez have been doing. These are not guys with Randy Johnson stuff, but if you know what you're doing, eventually, like at 33 years old, you'll get it and you'll have a chance to have success. I think Boyd is a good dude. I've heard some good things about him. I'm happy for him. That doesn't help the Twins at all, but anyway, what?
Well, I've been a fan of Boyd and his potential for a long time. The strikeouts from the left side, and they did that with Ben Lively this year too. I mean, they've cultivated some pretty good pitchers out of they've taken them out of the $3 Walmart bin, and I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's guys who have talent who've needed somewhere to develop it, and Cleveland's been that place.
And so for as much as we talk about the things that should be going wrong for Cleveland and we don't understand why they've gone right and all that, they've totally earned this, being in first place in this season. I don't give their ownership any credit, but the front office picked up just enough of the right kind of guys. And the new manager, Stephen Vogt, has done a good job. And the players who are there, Clase is, one of the best pitchers in the league, but they don't have a lot of overwhelming talent other than that. But they've earned this. They've earned the.
You're sitting in front of the baggie and the milk jug. Tell me where I'm wrong here. They remind me a lot of the 2002, 2003, 2004 Twins.
Yeah, I would say that's a good analogy comparison for sure.
Good bullpen.
I don't know that they have, like more offensive talent than those young offensive talent than those teams did. But yeah, I'd say that is, I don't know if they model themselves after those Twins teams. That would be funny, but that kind of club, I give them credit. So, here's to you, Guardians. Yay.
Should we give some credit to Sully too?
Yeah, give credit to Sully.
Thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen today. But for your second listen, check out Sully on Locked On MLB. He's Paul Sullivan, but since we got a good vibe with him, we call him Sully. And he's here daily to get you through the dog days and get you ready for the Fall Classic. We're headed toward the playoffs, and you can do so with Sully. Just get ready every single day on Locked On MLB. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast because, like Locked On Twins, it's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. And that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, I'm trying to point at milk for the Metrodome Milk and for Brandon Warren. This is Dave Brown saying thank you for listening and watching. And on the Twins podcast here, Locked On Twins. And we're going to see you tomorrow night.